Thanks for joining me. Today I'd like to introduce you to a new range of clamps that Philmac is going to be selling. I've spoken before, and you probably saw me because I'm back in the same pump shed, lucky me, where I spoke about Philmac's range of cam locks. The reason we've chosen to introduce this range of worm drive clamps is that we sell a lot of cam locks and a lot of hose fittings, so it just makes sense. It's kind of complementary. The great thing about it, we're doing two ranges. We're doing this one here, which is a galvanised range, or W1, that's what it's called in the industry, and a stainless steel range, or W3. We're doing a range of sizes, right from quite small ones here, right through to 160mm, so it covers most of the hoses that you typically use in the agricultural/horticultural sector. I'll just demonstrate. I want to show you some of the features of these. They're a really nice worm drive clamp. The first thing you'll probably notice, a really small structure up here, or head if you like. By keeping this really compact, and you notice on this small one how compact it is, what it ensures, we don't get these flat spots. When these housings are too big, you can get a flat spot, and therefore you don't get this even force applied right around the hose. So that's quite important, and we have that feature. The next thing we have, and you can probably see it here, the edges are actually rolled. You can see some marks where the machine has gone through and rolled those edges. What that means is the edges of this hose clamp aren't going to bite into the pipe and cause any damage. So that again is really important. As I said, a couple of choices. You can either get the stainless steel range, the W3, or a galvanised. Just depends on the situation you're in and which one would actually be most suitable. In terms of installation, it's quite straightforward. You can see here I've prepared one. I've actually slipped it already over the hose and it's ready to actually install. Now in terms of installation, we've got a few choices. You'll notice we've got the structure here. Now what we can do is either use a 7mm ratchet like I've got here, and that is across the range, so quite an advantage. So it doesn't matter whether you're dealing with one of these very small ones or you're dealing with this large one here, it's 7mm across the range, so it makes it very convenient for the end user or yourselves, those people who are watching, to put that on and simply tighten it up that way. If you don't have one of those handy, no problems at all. There's a couple of other choices. On the galvanised version, which I've managed to slip down there, you'll notice there's actually a cruciform on here. So you can actually use either a Phillips head, in this case like that, or if you want to, you can just use the traditional flathead screwdriver. So there are choices. On the galvanised version, they simply come with this one here, which is just the flat blade screwdriver. So whichever is the most convenient, go and grab it. But again, it's across the range, so one size screwdriver will do everything. My personal preference is actually for the ratchet. I just find it quite easy to use. Again, when we spoke before about using things like cam lock fittings, but again, what you want to do is you need to make sure this is towards the back, so it's over the barb and it's actually sitting on the shank of the fitting. It's just a question of holding it in what is a convenient position like that. I'll get my hands out of the way so you can see, and just a question of gradually tightening that up. So quite straightforward. And just make sure that, again, you make sure you just hold it like that. You're trying to just get that in position. That's really important. So it's not skewed one way or the other. We want to get that in position. So I'm just checking that just to make sure I'm happy with where that's at. And again, I'm not applying any great force here, just doing it nice and gently. And you'll gradually, as you do it, you'll start to feel that tighten up. It's quite straightforward. You'll feel it there. There we go. Now applying some force tightening up. You don't need to over tighten it. What you're doing is all you're doing is retaining the hose and stopping it from pulling over the barb. The barb's doing a lot of the work, so I wouldn't over tighten it. I'm feeling that's, and you can see how easy that was. So it's a great little mechanism. You don't need to be forcing it. It tightens up really nicely. And as I said, we have a range, so we've got a range to suit a lot of the really common size pipes or hoses that might be used around a farmyard. You know, your 2-inch washdown hoses, 1-inch washdown hoses, etc. So it's quite a good from that point of view. So as easy as, if you like, installed, and in this case I'm using a stainless one, that's going to be good for years and years to come. Thanks for joining me. I'd like today to introduce you to a new range of clips that we're introducing at Philmac, stainless steel clips. One of the reasons we're doing that is we still have our traditional range of plastic clips which have been used for many years, but we're finding a lot of people in the horticultural industry have been asking for stainless steel clips. They have a somewhat better life than plastic, and so we decided to introduce a range. If we have a close look here, what I've got is a couple of different sizes. We're doing a range right through from 13mm low density polyethylene right through to 32mm. These are the clips themselves. The great thing about these have a tremendous locking mechanism. This piece here locks over here, and I'll demonstrate that a little later on. They generally go through a range of around about 2 millimetres and have a compensation loop here, either a large lump on this one here, or in the case of this one, a couple of little small pieces here. So it gives us a range, and what it does is those compensation loops will open up with a larger pipe, but also make sure they provide a good solid seal against the pipe and don't allow for any movement. I'll now demonstrate the installation procedure. I mentioned earlier that the clips themselves suit a range of low density polyethylene. That includes inline drip. So from 13mm right through to 32, but a lot of the inline drip have different sizes, and we have clips that will suit that as well. Just having a look here, I've pre-fitted a joiner and made sure I've got the clip on to begin with. That's important. What I'll now do is what I need to do is grab my other piece of pipe, which I have here like this. And the important thing here is just to make sure I pre-fit the clip. That's important. So let me just get that clip on there like that. Okay, and just join these two pipes together like that. Okay, so now I've got both clips in place. We have a couple of options. We do offer a tool, which I'll demonstrate here. It's one that we have available from Philmac, which suits these clips. You can actually use a pair of pincers, so you don't have to use this tool. Let me just show you how it works. It's simply a question of using the thinner side and grabbing just like that, and together, sorry, just grab it properly, together it goes like that. You can see there what we have is we've locked together, and the compensation loops, these are slightly smaller ones, have moved a little. I'll show that again. So what we're doing is under this little tag here, we're using the thinner end of the tool, which I'm grabbing and putting in there like that. And what I'm doing, you'll notice, is I'm sitting behind, I'm sitting on the shanks, so I'm sitting behind the barb, and just a question of squeezing them like that. You'll hear the click, and then they're together. And you can see they're very sturdy, very tight, and that's going to last for years and years and years. I mentioned earlier these compensation loops. They're actually quite important to making sure these clips work properly. The clips generally have a range of around 1.5 to 2 millimetres of size, and what we want to make sure is those clips provide the even amount of force right through that whole range. So if you look down here, you'll see one that's been pre-fitted. This is the compensation loop, which is actually flattened out slightly. That's it in its normal state. Now, if it was perhaps a slightly smaller piece of pipe here, this wouldn't flatten out as much. But by doing that, that now makes sure there's an even amount of force right around this piece of pipe. So let me just demonstrate that by tightening up this other one here. So if you just bear with me, unfortunately it's a little difficult to see. I'll grab it there and tighten that up. Now that may be a little difficult to see. I'll rotate this a little there. Sorry, just underneath here you can see now that that's actually flattened out compared to what it was before. That's really important. So now the force around this pipe is very even, and that will make sure that this pipe won't move over that barb, and that's going to be good for many, many years to come.